Now we're going to talk about what shifts the aggregate supply curves. In a previous video, we talked about what shifts the long-run aggregate supply curve. We basically said it's changes in labor, like immigration, physical capital, human capital, natural resources, technological knowledge. These things impact an economy's ability to produce real GDP, right? To produce goods and services in the long run. And so anyway, so any change that shifts the long run aggregate supply curve also has to shift the short run aggregate supply curve, right? So it's a shift in the short run that is enduring, that lasts in the long run, right? So anyway, so if we just got a whole bunch of new people into Canada, new immigration, then that would shift the short run aggregate supply curve and have a lasting impact, right? And our long run aggregate supply curve would shift to the right as well. All right, so let's examine shifts that happen in the short run only and do not have a lasting impact, and therefore do not shift the long run aggregate supply curve as well. All right, so so the short run aggregate supply curve is impacted by deviations in the price level, in what was expected, the expected price level, and the actual price level, right? So if I'm here at PL1, and okay, so let's just imagine. Okay, so I'm at PL1 there. I'm at PL1 right here, and well, so what do we? And I'm in a pretty stable country. I'm in like Canada. We have pretty stable inflation rates here in Canada. So I've come to expect what the price level will be, and all my employees, they have wages with respect to the current price level. And I've priced all my products with respect to the current price level. And I have a clear understanding about relative prices because the price level is not changing very much. But then something happens, right? Something happens that is unexpected. All right, and that bumps us up to the second price level, PL2. So when there is price level changes that are unexpected, that's going to impact how much goods and services I produce in the short run, but it will not have a lasting impact. Why will it not have a lasting impact? Well, because I will adjust my expectations, okay? The expected price level will adjust in the long run, and the long run aggregate supply curve will not shift, okay? So let's just examine here. Here I am at point A in my little graph here, right? So I'm at point A at full employment. Everything's great. Everything's as I expected, but then inflation happens, right? And so what's going to happen? I'm going to move to point B. Wow, I'm going to move to point B in the short run, right? So I'm going to move out there, and basically what's going to happen is that I will produce more goods and services because there's been an increase in the price level. And then over time, though, I will realize that the prices of everything went up, right? Not just the price of the product that I sell. So I'm not making any more money. I'm not becoming more profitable. So I will not continue to sell more, right? And my prices, I will change my prices. And I will eventually pay people in my workforce with respect to the given price level of the time. So all of that will be adjusted, and we'll go back to the long run aggregate supply curve. Anyway, so you notice point A there, by the way, looking at this graph. Point A, I'm working at full employment, aren't I? Meaning that I'm working at my economy's capacity, okay, and or at least my economy's potential. We're working at the natural level of output, full employment. But then when inflation happens, I start producing at B. Now B, am I producing at a level that's greater than my potential? What? How can you produce greater than your potential? How can I produce at point B? Well, anyway, so on the next slide here, I'm going to explain how. Right. So the question is, if we're producing at full employment here at point A, and there is inflation, and many businesses in the economy start producing at point B, well, how can we produce greater than our potential? Like how can we produce more than full employment, than our natural rate of output? How can we do that? Well, the first thing is we get our workers to work harder, right? Let's get moving. Let's work harder and even longer, right? Overtime, right? So we might, pay extra money to even get this added production, right? We might move workers from support roles into production. When the unemployment level falls, that can induce people not in the labor force to enter, right? Grandma and grandpa, they start jumping in and into the workforce because they can make a lot more than minimum wage or something like that, right? Just because we've had inflation and we're already working at full employment. So the economy must be booming at that level. So there has to be something to entice people to get back into the market, to the labor force. Often it's higher salaries. So in this way, we can, at least just for a short time, work at a greater level than our full potential here, right? Than our full employment. Okay, if we go from A to B. But soon, grandma and grandpa get tired. We all realize that, this is just a short run change and that we're actually not being more profitable, and all the wages and prices adjust, and we go back to our long run equilibrium back at point C. Sometimes we have economic shocks in the economy that are unpredictable and that can affect aggregate supply in the short run and in the long run, as well as aggregate demand. All right, so I'd like to take us through some of those: earthquakes, alien invasions, virus outbreaks, zombie apocalypses, hurricanes. All of these can have an effect on a lot of different variables, right? And it really depends on the severity and, of course, the lasting impact. Is it going to have a lasting impact or not? So sometimes if it's just a small earthquake, we can see that factories would be closed down for a couple of days, we lost electricity, but 3 or 4 days they're back up. That's going to have only a short run impact, right? But sometimes earthquakes can have massive consequences, like that one that happened in Japan in March 11th. I don't know, what was it, 2011. So anyways, so during that time, because of the tsunami, there was a whole town that was wiped out, like with a greater population than that of Cold Lake. Could you just imagine a whole town wiped out, just gone? And so that has a lasting impact. That has a long run aggregate supply shift in the economy because of the lack of, almost 20,000 people died, guys. So it's like it's a loss of labor, for example. But all the factories are gone and all the equipment was gone too. So a loss of physical capital, right? Anyway, so that's going to have a long run impact. But again, small earthquakes, not such a big deal. Anyways, yeah, so some of these events also can affect aggregate demand factors too. So we have to look at the components of GDP to analyze that. So, can an earthquake affect consumption? Can it affect investment? Absolutely, it can, right? And our net exports as well. So, and there's just a lot of factors there that can happen. So, with an earthquake or a hurricane, that can impact aggregate supply, it can impact aggregate demand, and then it can have a lasting impact too, even change the long run aggregate supply curve as well.